Time to dig a hole. Hey guys, it's Phil from smilinggardener.com. If you haven't picked up my free online organic gardening course, you can do that right on the homepage of smilinggardener.com. Today I'm talking about soils again. What I'm going to do is get into a little bit of a home soil testing process you can easily do. And don't worry, I know you guys want to learn about how to control pests and get rid of weeds and how to grow really delicious tomatoes and how to get into fertilizing and which fertilizers to use, and I'm really excited to teach all that stuff. I love talking about that stuff. But the thing is, here's the thing. Hey, are you filming this out of order? When we start with the soil, we're actually working on all of that stuff already, so I'm already teaching you that. When we have really good healthy soil, we have healthy plants, we don't have pest problems, we have delicious tomatoes and other plants and nutritious plants. So starting with the soil really takes care of any kind of problems you might encounter, and it really addresses a lot of the goals you may have, such as growing food. So that's why we start there. And the cool thing is, within a few years, you're going to be growing this really healthy food and these really beautiful flowers. Now I say a few years because it actually does take time to get the soil to a level of nutrition that you can really be sure you're going to have hardly any pest problems. You can be more sure you're going to have higher nutrition in your food. It doesn't mean this year won't be good. You can still have great success in your first and second season, maybe second season, but as you get further and further, that's when it really starts to click. And it starts with this hole I've dug right here. Now this is a simple process. We're going to get into more detailed soil testing through a lab eventually, but this is a simple thing that you can do in less than half an hour, and I even do it every year or two just to see how I'm doing. So what you do is you dig a hole. You dig a hole that's about a foot wide and long and deep, and you start to look into that hole and you figure a few things out about your soil. The first thing I look at is how easy was it to dig. And you want to keep notes on all of this stuff because one of the main reasons we do it is to see how we progress year to year. Last year when I dug in here, it was reasonably difficult to dig. It's a pretty heavy clay soil. It came out in big clumps. But last year I double dug this, which I'm going to show you eventually, and I sheet mulched it, which I'm going to show you eventually as well. And so digging it this year, it took about 1 minute to dig this hole. I put it in here into a wheelbarrow. You could put it onto a tarp or a garbage bag. You want to look at it and see how dark the soil is. Here this has pretty nice organic matter because I amended it quite a lot last year, but when I started it was a much lighter color. Now it's pretty dark. I guess you can't see because I'm kind of standing in the shadows, and you know what? It's going to get a lot darker over the years. If it were a really light beige color, if I knew I had sand, then I can kind of keep track as I'm amending it with organic matter if I'm improving that. If it were like a gray color, I might just be a little concerned about if it's maybe a really heavy clay. Again, I'm going to be amending it. So I'm just trying to pay attention. I also put it in here and I look at the soil in the wheelbarrow. One thing I do is I kind of drop it in there in clumps and I see how some of those clumps break apart. Look at how beautifully this is broken apart. It still has nice, oh, there you are, nice kind of aggregates. It's not like sand, but it also has a nice kind of looseness to it. So it kind of clumps a little, but those clumps fall apart very easily. Now that's just because I've been working on it for a year. Your first year is the hardest because that's when you got to start doing some heavy work, but eventually it becomes like this, and mine's doing really nice. Also, I can do the ribbon test I showed you last time, which is taking 1/3 of a cup and trying to squeeze it into a ball and into a ribbon to see if I have clay or sand. That tells me a lot, as I talked about last time. Oh, and there's another thing to look for. Earthworms. So if you go through your square foot of soil and you find 10 earthworms, then you're doing pretty good. I'm happy to have 10 earthworms. I'm really happy if I can find more like 30 earthworms, which I'm sure I could find in here because of all the work I've been doing. Another thing I like to look for, and this is especially if I do it in a lawn, which I didn't today, but if you do it in a place where there's roots, if you see how far down the roots go, you can keep track of that. If you see the roots kind of stop at a certain point and start going sideways, that probably means you have a hard pan layer there, and you might want to the first year double dig through that with a fork, with a garden fork, and also do some amending when we get into the soil testing stuff, because we want the roots to be able to go much deeper than that. Also, you can look to see if there are fine root hairs on your roots that indicate there's plenty of oxygen in the soil, or maybe if there's not a lot of fine root hairs, that's pointing to a lack of oxygen. There are a few things you can do right now. If you have a question for me about how to improve your soil, you can ask it down below and I'll get back to you. If you haven't signed up for my free online organic gardening course, you can do that at smilinggardener.com. If you're on Facebook, You can like my page there and we can hang out there, and my sister posts stuff there every day too. She posts a lot of cool stuff. On YouTube, you can subscribe, and I'll see you next time.